Welcome to All Power to the Developing, a podcast of the Eastside Institute, where social justice, human development, and community building come together. This is where you will meet activists, artists, teachers, scholars, helpers, and healers who are bringing creativity, hope, and possibility to individuals and communities all over the world. Welcome everyone to All Power to the Developing. Thank you so much for being here with us. This is your host, Desire Wandan. That is Des for short, and welcome to All Power to the Developing. Today we have a very great guest. Today's guest is someone whose work is quite literally magical. A professional magician and change maker who works with Magician Without Borders, an organization that brings magic, mentorship, and hope to children and communities living in difficult circumstances across the globe. Our guest has performed and taught magic in refugee camps, orphanages, and underserved neighborhoods, using the art of illusion to open up new possibilities, build confidence, and spark joy where it is needed most. Welcoming to All Power to the Developing, Carlos Lopez. What's going on, Carlos?
Hey, Des. All is good. Thank you for having me here.
Yes. You did a presentation. You were one of our presenters at Performing the World, and you did an amazing segment. I really thought it was amazingly impactful. I mean, all of the sessions were amazingly impactful, but yours really stood out to me as someone who was behind the scenes, a host, a tech person. When I was just watching it, working it, I was saying to myself, "Wow, this is amazing," and it kind of opened up a world to me that I think most people only think of in one way. Like when we think of magic, or at least when I think of magic, I relate to it more to like mainstream entertainment. You know, what you see on the big stages, and we know about some of the more mainstream magicians. But here you are using this art to go into more underserved, poor communities to not only provide entertainment, but provide other opportunities and open up new possibilities. So I'm very excited to have you on All Power to the Developing, Carlos.
Hey, Des, thank you so much. And you're right. I mean, when we think about magic, it's either something that's a completely unreal, that's something that means superpowers, or something like, I don't know, David Copperfield or David Blaine that's,
Mm-hmm.
on TV and big stages.
Yeah.
But, we're here to explore what magic can do in what we might call, the forgotten places of the world.
Yes. So can you kind of tell us a little bit about Magician Without Borders? Can you break down kind of the mission statement and where your journey starts with them?
Totally. So in Magicians Without Borders, we use the art of magic to create a just world full of possibilities in communities around the world. That's what we do. That's the why, right? How do we do it? We want to entertain, educate, and empower the forgotten children of the world. And what do we do to achieve that? We do two main things. The first one is free public performances in places where magic is not accessible. Like, for example, we're going to embark in a journey to Ukraine and Poland, where we're going to perform for refugees of the war. And we have performed for many of those places. And the other thing that we do is we create what we call education chapters in the slums, mainly in Latin America, where we teach kids starting at the age of 14 or 12 or 14 magic for a long period of time. So we want to teach them for at least a year, hopefully 3 or 4 years. That's what we do. And I personally joined Magicians Without Borders in 2012. And Magicians Without Borders has been using magic to do social work since 2001. And I joined them in 2012. So it's been a long journey for me as well.
Yes, yes. Carlos, what is it about magic that you feel? Because you say you use it both in this educational format, and then of course you're using it in this entertainment format, just going to the communities and doing shows. What is it about? I mean, besides the obvious, right? If you see no bird on someone's head and then you see a bird on someone's head, you're like, whoa, where did that come from? But what is it about magic that you feel, as a creates this powerful tool to create transformation and connection amongst these people?
Yes, I think there's a couple of things. First, I think magic is a medium, a communication method that can be understood by anybody, right? You can actually
Mm-hmm.
do magic for somebody that does not speak your language. So you kind of use magic as a communication, right? So you can communicate amazement, wonder, awe without saying a word. So it makes magic universal. So it doesn't matter where you are at, what language do you speak, what knowledge do you have, right? What's your place in society or whatever, you're going to be able to enjoy magic. And when you see magic, it evokes this, a very primal senses and sensations and feelings that connect us to something bigger than ourselves, right? And we're able to experience wonder. And I think that's beautiful. You can do it for anybody, anywhere, under almost any circumstance. But also, I think that magic creates hope, and that's we take that from our experience. But also, there's a quote from a great magician whose name is Eric Weiss, and he was also a refugee. His family had to flee Europe, and he went to the U.S. And he was then known for his stage name Harry Houdini. And he said that when he escaped his impossible situations, right? Remember, Harry Houdini used to handcuff himself, turned upside down into a box full of water, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he had to escape before his air ran out, right? So he said that when he escaped that impossible situation and he saw the audience, right? He saw how it that feat awakened hope on the eyes of the audience. So we want to take that a little bit further and say that if your situation, the one that you're living now, is impossible because you might be in a refugee camp, you might be in a war-torn country, or you might be just in a very difficult social situation or financial situation. If you see and experience wonder, right, it might awaken hope that the impossible might become possible, right? And that hope is very important because when you are in that situation, hope is one thing that you can cling on to.
Yes, absolutely. I think that something I didn't think of that you spoke of was the universalness of magic. That you're right. You don't need to say a particular language. It's like someone sees this card and you flick it and it turns into something else. It's like, whoa, regardless of age, demographic, culture, it puts them at all and it creates hope. I think that is absolutely amazing. Um, in your teaching it also and giving the skill to others, something I'm thinking about also, does that give power to some of these people in these communities that may have felt powerless before, and now giving them this art form, giving them this tool that they could use, gives them a sense of power both as a performer, and then later on you'll speak about some of the entrepreneurship activities that this kind of creates for people also.
Yes, that's absolutely. When we teach magic, right? This is a tool that at first, and we understand that, right? That it sounds like, come on, you're gonna go to the slums and or to the war-torn country and teach them magic. They might need something else, right? And I think both things are true. They might need something else, but magic is very, very useful and very, very empowering because when you learn magic, right? You start by learning some secrets, right? And when we do the education chapters, we are very careful to explain the importance of the secrets, right? Because if, you know, everybody knew how magic worked, all the tricks, right? And there were no magic secrets, then we wouldn't have a job, right? Like magicians would be out of a job, right? But once you become a magician, you start learning the secrets. Now you're part of something, that's bigger than yourself, right? And that is super empowering because you have a sense of, I know something that somebody else does not, right? And we see this play out beautifully, right? Because I think it has the same power over young people as a gang does, right?
Mhm.
When you're young people and you are living in different difficult situations, and somebody approaches you with the opportunity to become part of a gang, right? It feels important. It feels like you have something that nobody else have. You have access to something that nobody else have. You have some power, etc., right? And you want to be part of it. Same thing happens with magic. When you're part of the magicians, actually you're part of the guardians of those secrets, right? And actually the word that distinguishes people from magicians and not non-magicians is very important. So much so that in the Harry Potter books, they call them muggles, right? Muggles
Mhm.
are the ones that are not magicians, right? In outside of Harry Potter, we call them laymen, right? So laymen are just people that are not part of the sacred world of magic. So you're now part of a sacred world. We're sharing secrets with you. And when you have those secrets, you might identify yourself as somebody that knows something important that not even the president of your country might know, right? So that's empowering.
Mhm.
And also when you share magic, right, you have to stand in front of an audience because magic doesn't make sense to yourself. Meaning, when you practice magic, obviously you do it by yourself, right? But you're not going to amaze yourself because you know the secret, right? So magic is actually the only performance art that needs an audience to happen for it to make sense because magic happens in the brain of the audience, right? When I know the secret of a trick and I practice it, well, I don't get amazed, right?
Mhm.
But when I do it for somebody who does not know the secret, that's when the magic happens. That's when my performance, right, becomes something different. So you need the audience. So actually, the magician needs a performance stage, some kind of audience for them to transmit or convey the attention so that they can perform this piece of magic. And when you do that, you're actually put on a place of empowerment. You have power over the audience.
Yes, yes, I could imagine. I mean, also, just in my experience of watching magic, the shows that you can't take your eyes off of it. It's not like there's all different types of entertainment where you can kind of turn your head to the side and relax. But magicians know how to kind of hold your attention, and as a performer, I can imagine that power right there. Is like I have all of these people kind of in my hands right here. Um,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
I lo-
There's I mean, that reminded me of one of our students in El Salvador who he now leads the country's biggest dance spectacles, right? Performances. There's people that go to marathons. There's people in Salvador that go to dance-a-thons,
mm,
right? So he's the one that leads those dance-a-thons, and he commands a huge amount of people, a big crowd to follow his steps, right? And while he's now, I don't know, he might be in his 30s or near his 30s, maybe. And well, I met him when he was right before he turned 20. And I met him a couple of years ago, and he was telling these new students how when he first performed magic, right, he understood that if he was a compelling enough performer, the audience will follow whatever he says, right? So he clicked onto that power that he has as a performer, right? And he said, If I told the audience, hey, everybody, lift your hand or raise your hand, right? The audience is going to raise their hand, right? So that's super empowering. He can compel people to do what he wants, right? And now he says that he learned that in magic, and that now serves him as a dance-a-thon, leader to command his audience to follow on his dance steps.
Mhm.
So that's pretty cool.
Yes, yes. We're gonna take a short commercial break. When we come back, we're gonna get deeper with Carlos. We're gonna learn a lot more about how he came to be the magician he is today. We'll be right back on All Power to the Developing.
Hi, I'm Melissa Meyer, Associate Director of the Eastside Institute. Welcome to All Power to the Developing. I hope you're enjoying today's conversation. In each episode, we introduce you to some amazing performance activists, play revolutionaries, and developmentalists from around the world who talk to us about their creative grassroots efforts to build a better world. If you like what you hear, please follow and share the series. You can find us on Amazon, Spotify, and Podbean. We'd love to hear your comments and ideas. Like everything at the Institute, the growth of All Power to the Developing depends upon the people who create it and benefit from it. We hope you're one of them. Thanks for your support, and now back to our conversation.
Welcome back to All Power to the Developing with our guest Carlos Lopez. So Carlos, you're a magician. You're traveling to a lot of these different communities, and what you've mentioned is some of these are war-torn communities of orphanages, refugee camps. So while you are delivering positivity, joy, hope through your magic, there's still a lot of trauma here. There's still a lot of roughness here, and you've been at it for a while through your work as a magician. I consider you an activist. Where does all of this start for you? Because people that do work in extreme environments, I'm sure you just didn't wake up on a Tuesday and say, hey, I decided to go to a place that has bombs and different things going on over here. This has to come from somewhere deep inside of you, the willingness to go into these communities. So I really want to explore, where does that all start for you, Carlos?
Sure, Des, sure. Yes, I didn't wake up any Tuesday just saying, hey, let's go to a war-torn country.
Yeah.
I think, and I've been thinking about this. I think it starts, with how I was raised, right? I come from a very privileged background, and my granddad on my mother's side, he was also very privileged. He was a lawyer, and with his friends, when he was not old, but when he was near his retirement, he said, we life has been good to us. Let's try to give back. And he started his own nonprofit, right? And when he did that, he included his family, and that included us, the grandchildren. When it was Christmas time, uh, our job of the grandchildren, right, was to come up with a performance that we're going to put on for the beneficiaries of my granddad's nonprofit, which was a nonprofit that gave free housing to people who could not afford it. So we went to that community, right? And we did a performance, right? And we did also, we celebrated Christmas and we gave gifts and all that. But all my memories of growing up, right, are in Christmas are, hey, we have to do something for somebody else, right? It's not only for our family, it's not only for our close circle. It has to go to somebody that's not in our close circle or family. And I grew up with that, and I thought everybody did it, right? And as I grew older, I knew that that wasn't the case. And also, that was implanted in me. And also, I think that living in the country where I'm from, right? I'm from Colombia. And even though I live in Bogota, which is the capital of Colombia, we have always lived on the edge of a civil war, right? We had a civil war for over 60 years. And I remember in 2016 we had a chance to vote for a way to sign a peace treaty with the main actors of the war, of the civil war. But when that was going on, I was thinking like, hey, I don't remember my country in peace, right? Well, I had never lived in my country in peace. We have always had struggle, right? And I don't think I have anything to contribute to that, right? That's what I used to think, right? But then with magic, it gave me the possibility of saying, hey, we can be in war, but also have these feelings of amazement, wonder, awe, right? And have entertainment as something that is positive, right? Even though we're living in war, right? In civil war. And that's how it started with me, right? Hey, I love magic. I know how to do it. I want to go and perform, not for my close circle, not for my family, for people who are, I'm not going to cross on the street or in my normal or everyday life. And that's how I started in my own country and started in my own city, going to the slums and performing there, right? And that was what I wanted to contribute to in the beginning to my country, to my city, and now to the world. It's like, hey, it doesn't matter where you're at, what you're going through, right? You can feel two things at the same time, right? You can feel devastated about your situation or of your personal situation or the world's or your city or your countries, but also you can feel joy and amazement and wonder, right? In a great entertainment space, right? And I wanted to create those spaces that are not something that happen often in places like Colombia, where I'm from.
Yeah. And how were those early experiences going into the slums? Can you describe some of those very, very early experiences, and how
Sure.
were they for you? Did you what did you learn from them? Those first couple of experiences.
Yes, I mean, of course, the first ones were in the nonprofit started that my grandfather started, right? And that was just, very safe environment, let's say. But then when I wanted to really do this, right? I remember I told my family, okay, I'm gonna do this, right? What I've done all my life in Christmas, right? I'm gonna do it more often but in more places. So I'm going to take a bus, right? I'm going to go to the biggest cities of my country, but I'm going to visit the slums of them, right? And then I'm going to do a tour of secondary cities, right? And I'm going to go and perform for people who cannot afford entertainment, right? And when I said that, the first reaction of my family was like, "You what? Why? Like, why would you like to step away of this security that you have here? Because I live in the capital of Colombia, which is very safe. So I wanted to go and see other places, especially those that cannot afford entertainment. And when I did, of course, everybody was like, we don't know what to expect. I did not know what to expect. But when I went to those places and I performed there, the reaction that I got, not only the reaction to the things that I was doing, but after the fact, right? The genuine thanks that I received, right? These people that had never seen me, right? That didn't know anything about me, that I just stumbled upon their lives, right? But with this just curiosity of, hey, are you free for me to do a magic show for you? And they don't even know what magic is. Maybe they thought magic and they thought, black magic, voodoo, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then they saw entertainment and they're like, "Oh, this is great. Thank you so much for coming here. Nobody comes here to entertain us, right? You are the first magician ever to come here, right?" And the kids, the parents and the people from different NGOs that I collaborated with, they're like, "This is amazing. Like we've never seen it before, right?" And I got so much genuine a gratefulness from the people that I was performing for, that it was super surprising, right? I didn't expect for that, you know, a gratefulness. I don't know if that's the word that I'm looking for, but yeah, the people showing appreciation for what you do, right? And thanking you, that it was so overwhelming. It was, it still is. But I remember that that's the first thing that I clicked on me, that's saying, man, this is so unexpected, right?
Yeah.
So unexpected to be so genuinely thanked.
Yeah, yeah. I think going back to when you were talking about magic creates hope, I think one thing is in some of these communities when they feel outcasted, it's about pushing people out. And the fact that you went over there in the first place, like you said, the fact that you even went over there gives people hope. Just even that simple fact that someone from the outside, the quote unquote outside, is coming in to share something is hope. And then now you're going deeper by doing the tricks and doing everything and creating the environment. It's like a continuous process.
Completely, yes.
We're living in a world today where it seems people are becoming more, you know, disenchanted, more disconnected from people, polarized. You're in the realm of creating connection, creating joy, creating happiness. What kind of advice or what, you know, I don't want to say life lessons, but what kind of things could you give to, you know, our listeners, whether they're just general people working or whether they are in have their own organization or whether they want to do something. Maybe they want to start a garden in their community. Maybe they want to start a football or a soccer or sporting thing for the youth in their community. Maybe they want to take an art direction. But people that want to make change in their community, you know, you're a change maker, Carlos. What are some of the things you could give to people, some insights, and because you're giving hope right now. I feel like the whole theme of this podcast is hope, through
That's
magic,
great.
of
Yes.
course. But what are some things that you could kind of share there, Carlos?
Well, I can go to many places, but let's try to explore two of them, right? The first one is something that took me a while, right? To get or to understand or to think that after so many things that I've done, it makes a lot of sense. I'm going to try to explain it because it's hard for me to do, especially in English. But it's that idea of if you are somebody that wants to do something for others, right? Regardless of what that is, right? Whenever you do, take into account that when you're doing it, you, the person that wants to do it for others, right, should be in some moment at the same level as them, right? And that's where I start because when my grandparent, right, my granddad started his NGO, he said, I'm starting from a place of life has been good to me, so now I want to give back to the ones that don't have, right? And that immediately puts you in a position where like I have something I know you don't have, so here I'm going to give you some, right? And that's not they're not in the same level, right? When I started doing magic, same thing, right? I go to a place, I know something, I come from some other background. I'm gonna go to your place, to your thing, and do magic, right? We're not in the same place, right? But when we're doing, for example, our education chapters, right? We try to come up with experiences where I haven't done them, right? And the people that we're serving have not done them as well, right? One of the biggest things, and you were there for some, was us taking some kids from the slums of Bogota, Colombia, to New York to perform, right? But I had never been to New York performing, right? I hadn't done that either. So I was doing something for the first time as were the people that I was serving, right? So our students had never been to New York to perform, neither had I, right? So that shared experience where we're both experiencing something for the first time, that's where real change happens when some real connections happen, right? And I think that's super valuable. So whatever you're trying to do, right? If you're want to do something with others, remember this, right? Try to keep in mind what experiences can we create where both are at the same step, right? Either if it's volunteers and beneficiaries or the founders, the whatever's, right? And the quote unquote others, right? Try to get that others word out of it, right? You should all be on the same thing. And I think that's when real connection happens and real opportunities to develop happen, right? So that's the first one, right? The other one is try to create those connections that would not be enabled if it wasn't for you. I don't know if that came out right. Let me try and rephrase it, right? Try to create connections that would not happen otherwise, right? So, for example, when we teach kids in the slums, the kids that I teach to, right, I would not have crossed them if it wasn't for that, right? It's just places of society that would not have mixed or encountered by any other way, right? We are creating that social tissue, right? By which we're weaving things together, lives together, that were not supposed to be intertwined, right? So when we are with our students and we want to be with them for a long period of time, right? Remember at the beginning I said we try to be with them for at least a year and it's not more. That's when real connection happens, right? And that enables for a future of hope, right? Like if I make friends with them and they make friends with me, both of our lives are going to be better because of that, right? And if that connection, we made it happen because it's not supposed to happen in quote unquote the real world, that's when also new development opportunities come, new growth opportunities. And I think that's very positive. So that we are creating something that is that benefits both of us, right? And something that we are going to have in common from now on, right? But we come from different worlds,
Yeah.
right? And the reality is that, they're going to tell us to butt heads and, because they are they and them are them, you know what I mean? We could see it in many, many different ways. When I'm with the kids in the slums of South America, there's always this thing of, but you're one that has money, right? You're one that has a future. You're one that's privileged, right? And from the other side, it's like, you're going to go where the poor are. You're going to go where people who have no future are, right? And that divides us, right? But when we put ourselves in the same situation and we're together, right? Then we have something that unites us rather than pull us apart. And we want to try and focus on that, whatever brings us together rather than pulls us apart.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely great insight there. Absolutely. Kind of reminds me of some of the book Let's Develop by Fred Newman, where we kind of, we're dealing with roles and performances, and then we get stuck in these roles. And, one is coming as a role as teacher, facilitator, giving the information to the so-called student who's in a role, but staying stuck in those roles, you're not going to really gain much for each other. So coming to each other's level, like you're saying, to build a connection, I think is great.
Completely.
Carlos, thank you so much for being on All Power to the Developing today. If people would like to stay in touch with you, learn more about your work, donate, how can people find you?
Yes, you can go to www.magicianswithoutborders.com. You can find us on Instagram also at Magicians Without Borders. If you want to shoot me an email, carlos@magicianswithoutborders.com. You can find me there. And hopefully we can make some magic happen.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Carlos. And let's continue to make that magic happen. Thank you so much for listening to All Power to the Developing. This is your host, Desire Wandan. We are available on all major digital streaming platforms. If you would like to give us a like, a comment, a subscribe, please follow us on all digital streaming platforms on All Power to the Developing. If you like what you listen to and you would like to write to us, you could do that at podcast@eastsideinstitute.org. I repeat, that is podcast@eastsideinstitute.org. Write to us. We would love to read your response at the end of an episode. Once again, this is Desire Wandan, Des for short, and Carlos Lopez from Magicians Without Border, and All Power to the Developing. We'll see you next time. All Power to the Developing was made possible in part by Growing Social Therapeutics, the Baylor Wolf Fund,